Manchester United believe they have signed the next big thing and believe they could turn a top transfer target into a superstar. Ruud van Nistelrooy backs new signings Manuel Ugarte and Joshua Zirkzee, and the players blame Erik Ten Hag for the results this season in a private meeting. That plus all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news that will keep you right up to date with everything. Welcome to Man United Review. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, please smash a like on the video. And let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with Ruud van Nistelrooy's comments. So there's a couple of interesting quotes I felt from the embargoed part of his press conference, which came out late last night, early this morning, where he was asked specifically around Manuel Ugarte. So he had the following to say regarding Ugarte first. So he said, I work with Manuel on a daily basis. He adapts. He wants to adapt. He wants to be part of the club to succeed, and he is very motivated to do so. He improves every time. Yesterday's performance, so that was Wednesday, was good, and he can build on that. We are very limited in midfield with injuries. We will need him in the next matches. I think he will do a good job. So Van Nistelrooy was kind of, praising Ugarte, saying that he thinks he can be a success at Manchester United. He didn't kind of answer the question, though, as to why he hasn't been kind of playing so far this season. But then he was also asked a very similar question regarding Joshua Zirkzee. And he said that Josh is in a similar situation to Manuel Ugarte. He's a young player with a lot of potential. He is a typical 9. He is very good in combinations and holding the ball. He is different from Rasmus Højlund, who is more of a 9 who plays higher up the pitch, behind the defenders. And Josh is one who comes with the ball and makes the team play. Against Crystal Palace, he was excellent. It was one of his best performances, and he showed his potential. A very talented player. He has a lot of potential to develop. We need to give him time. I think he will be a very good player for the club. So Van Nistelrooy kind of coming to the defence regarding Joshua Zirkzee. And again, I kind of trust Van Nistelrooy's judgment when it comes to strikers, considering the fact that he, was one of the best around in his time. And it's an interesting one, isn't it, Joshua Zirkzee? Because I've been critical of him for some of his performances. I know some of you have in the comments as well on match reaction and player ratings and stuff. Do you know what I mean? And I kind of think that, and I've always said, he needs time. He's a young lad learning the league. We need to kind of, we need to allow him to kind of develop, because it's not easy coming in. The only thing I would say about Zirkzee is it seems the speed of the Premier League. He needs to develop that. He seems to have that kind of lazy language, body language when he's on the pitch, and sometimes he's getting caught on the ball too often. But that's a transition from Serie A to the Premier League, because you do not get a second on the ball in the Premier League. Players are on you, whereas in Serie A it's a little bit different, where you do maybe a little bit more time to control the ball in turn and make a decision. But I think that will come. I think he's in the spotlight at the moment, considering the state of the club, the fact we're not scoring goals, etc. And I think there's a lot to pin on a young striker that's only been here, 3-4 months, didn't have a pre-season as well. Do you know what I mean? I kind of think for me, I think he does need to improve. His finishing's been the biggest kind of thing. I've been critical of him so far this season, but I do think we need to give him time, let him settle in. I think the kind of the pile-in on him is unnecessary, in my opinion, considering he has only just signed for the club. So for me personally, I kind of agree with Ruud. I think we need to be patient and give him some time and some patience and allow him to kind of develop. If we're having the same conversations or seeing the same performances in a year's time, then maybe, you could start to be a little bit more critical. But it's not as easy as people think coming to the Premier League from another league where you don't have that time on the ball and adapting instantly. There's very few players that can kind of do it immediately. And I do just think we need to be a bit patient with Zirkzee. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, let's go through some, obviously, Van Nistelrooy is our interim manager. Let's go through some updates regarding our new manager, or head coach, I should say, coming in. So Laurie Whitwell, very credible source, said at the executive committee meeting at Ineos's headquarters in Knightsbridge on October the 8th, a contingency plan was laid out should results fail to improve under Erik Ten Hag. Ruben Amorim was top of the list. So remember I was saying before, there was that whole kind of hullabaloo around the meeting and Ten Hag's going to get sacked and all of that kind of stuff. And it was, and nothing really happened from it. And we were saying afterwards, and again, I think it came from the Muppeteers, that we're saying that now they're just looking at contingencies and alternatives should things not improve under Ten Hag. And Laurie Whitwell's kind of confirmed that as well, to say that in that meeting, they obviously did discuss and make a contingency plan for if things didn't improve under Ten Hag. And they've obviously executed that plan. And Ruben Amorim was, according to Laurie Whitwell, top of that kind of list to replace Ten Hag if and should. And they have obviously made that decision. Laurie Whitwell also said, in the week Manchester United faced Fenerbahce, United gauged Ruben Amorim's willingness to make the switch straight away, with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sir Dave Brailsford involved. Omar Barada in particular regarded Ruben Amorim highly for his record of winning 2 titles at Sporting after a 19-year drought for the club. So again, he was kind of seen as the kind of top priority, and obviously Omar Barada's in control of the football operations, being our CEO. So, and then obviously there was news yesterday regarding Barada sacking Ten Hag in the morning, literally jumping on a plane, flying straight to Sporting to get the deal done for Ruben Amorim. So clearly that was planned. And then that's not the only update we've had on Amorim. So major clubs like Bayern Munich and Barcelona have been monitoring Ruben Amorim. Manchester United saw this as a rare chance to get the next big thing. That came from Miguel Delaney, who's a decent source, suggesting that United kind of went all in for Ruben Amorim because they do see him as the next big thing. There are nothing but positive stories regarding Ruben Amorim that you can find around, and he is really, really kind of highly thought about in the kind of football manager world as the potential. We've heard comparisons with, the next Jose Mourinho. I do think that clubs like Barcelona were looking for him. Obviously, Bayern Munich on there as well. I think City would have looked at him. Liverpool looked at him to replace Jurgen Klopp. Do you know what I mean? Like, he is kind of very, very highly regarded. The more you kind of research and look into it, the more the more exciting it is. And the fact that United went in for him, it shows that kind of ruthlessness where they've kind of gone out and got their man straight away. Obviously, the report yesterday was that he'd been given an ultimatum as well, like a now or never ultimatum, and I'm all for that as well. In terms of Amorim himself, he kind of confirmed that other clubs were interested in him as well. If you remember, he was saying that some people say it's for money, it's not. Other clubs were prepared to pay 3 times more, and I refused. United is the club I wanted. So Amorim himself kind of confirming that it was only United that he was kind of waiting for, and then when we came in, it was kind of a too good of opportunity for him to turn down as well. So again, more positive stories regarding the new kind of head coach coming in. Again, I'm a little bit more reserved because I have heard these stories before about previous managers coming in. I do think it is exciting, though, and in a way, it's going to be really interesting to see kind of what happens, how we get on, how he improves United. It's not going to be a light switch, but he is definitely a very, very highly regarded manager, the next kind of up-and-coming manager coming through. So I'm massively excited that they've kind of gone out and got it. I just need to wait and see how it kind of develops on the pitch. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. And then from one next big thing to another. So Manchester United plan to sign Sunderland wonderkid Chris Rigg and transform him into a superstar. So that came from Peter O'Rourke, who's again a very fairly decent source, fairly credible source, not like an Ornstein or a Romano, but fairly decent, I would say. Suggesting that and now Chris Rigg is definitely a player of interest. We've had multiple reports. I brought you on this channel. There's been a few kind of credible or more credible outlets kind of saying that Chris Rigg is definitely a player of interest of United. The 17-year-old midfielder plays for Sunderland. I live in the Northeast. I have a lot of friends that are Sunderland season ticket holders and stuff. They all absolutely love him. He's been kind of compared to, not in terms of play style and stuff, but Jude Bellingham, in a way that he's a very young player whose trajectory could go on to be one of the best around. That's what they kind of reckon about Chris Rigg. He's on that kind of Jude Bellingham trajectory where he plays for a championship club, could go on to be an absolute world beater. And according to that report, United kind of see him as a player that they could transform into a superstar as well. Whether we would get he's going to cost a bit of money though, because even though he's young, I think Sunderland are wanting about 20 to 30 million pounds for him. Whether that would be a January deal or whether that could be a summer deal, who knows? Or maybe we could get him in January, loan him back. All depends on funding and stuff. But he's definitely a player. He is a player that we are kind of heavily linked to. Definitely one that I would put on the kind of watch list almost as a potential sign-in. And interesting that they kind of see him as the next big thing as well, or the next kind of superstar. So definitely one to keep an eye on. Let me know what you think about Chris Rigg in the comments. Now, the next story I'm going to go through for you. Firstly, I would say this came from The Sun, so do take it with a pinch of salt, but it raises an interesting kind of point and perspective, I suppose, on things. So, frustrated Manchester United stars held their own private summits into the club's disastrous start to this season. The players concluded former boss Erik Ten Hag was responsible for the loss of 8 points. Some of the dressing room went through the failures this season in private and tried to identify what was going wrong. They took culpability for the woeful performance against Spurs, losing against West Ham after missing numerous chances to score. They also believe Ten Hag's tactics and substitutions during games had seen them drop 8 points. A source said the players definitely know they have been underperforming in some games this season and have been honest about that, but they were also left puzzled by some of Ten Hag's decisions which didn't make sense to them. Either leaving players out, subbing off players who were playing well at crucial parts of the games, or instructing the team tactically in ways that they believe cost them games. They reckon his decisions were directly responsible for the equivalent of losing 2 games and picking up a point instead of a win. Now, that came from The Sun. So firstly, just on that, I freaking hate all these stories around player leaks and stuff. And, I don't think necessarily Ten Hag is responsible for everything. There's been some games where it's just been purely on the players this season. So I don't think that Ten Hag is ultimately to blame for everything. I think it's a combination of everything that's kind of going wrong. So I do think that some of the players need to look at themselves in the mirror, because they're just as responsible as the manager. Because, look at the West Ham game, for example, where, first half we should have been home and dry, missed all the chances, and then we end up losing the game. And there's been countless kind of examples of that where, we played well for spells, haven't finished our chances. So I do think the players, I think it's shocking that the players are kind of playing the blame game again. And then I thought, well, is there any substance in that? Is there any kind of truth in what they're saying? So I went through United's kind of results this season, right? Beat Fulham, so obviously that's not in the equation. The Brighton game, I put a question mark around. Is that one of the games that they're talking about that was Ten Hag's fault? Because if they are, I don't necessarily agree with that, because if you remember, Zirkzee scored, or was it Zirkzee's knee that was offside that prevented us going 2-1 up, and then all the players decided to switch off at the end of the game on a corner, and then we ended up losing the game. But the question mark I put around it, was that not the game where Scott McTominay came on randomly in the second half of Bruno Fernandes, when I actually thought Fernandes was playing all right in that game, which kind of killed the momentum in that game. So maybe that's a question mark that they were on about. Obviously, the Liverpool game is down on the players, in my opinion, or specifically Casemiro. Obviously, beat Southampton. The Palace one, again, that's a game that we should have won because we should have been home and dry in the first half. But the second half, I actually thought we were quite kind of lucky not to lose in the end, because Palace had some really good chances, if I remember rightly. Did Onana not make a couple of good saves at the end? I think Eze put one wide as well. Do you know what I mean? So potentially that could be one, but I'm trying to think what Ten Hag would have done wrong necessarily in that game. Tottenham won. Yep. Obviously, it is what it is. I don't necessarily think... Well, saying that, the Tottenham one could be maybe down to the tactics and the team shape and stuff. Aston Villa bought a 0-0 draw. Again, though, was that down to the tactics? Probably, actually, because we were, we set up very defensive in that game. So that maybe could be one they could question. Brentford, we won, and then the West Ham one, we won as well. So I don't necessarily think that Ten Hag's massively to blame for a lot of those results. They're the only 4 that I could think of where they're thinking about 8 points, potentially a point against Brighton, 3 against Palace, potentially 3 against Aston Villa, and then obviously should have maybe got a draw at minimum against West Ham. So, you know, there's your 8 points. But I struggle to kind of believe the players, actually, when you look at it. Do you know what I mean? I'm kind of thinking, well, you know, is it all on Ten Hag? I don't think it is. I genuinely don't. I think a lot of it's to do with the players. So again, like it's a story I would say take with a pinch of salt, as I mentioned, because it's come from the Sun, not the most credible sources. But you know, I don't agree. I think the players are just as culpable as Erik Ten Hag. I think it's been a combination of everything that's kind of caused the shitstorm. And the reason that we are, whether it's Ten Hag's tactics and his man management or whatever the kind of criticism is. But then also, I think the players have got to take a large blame of it themselves. So I don't necessarily think that it's on Ten Hag that we've not got those 8 points, because yes, there's a couple of those games where you could argue and say, okay, we're tactically, you know, if I put them back up a second. So, you know, did we do anything tactically wrong against Brighton? I think second half, potentially, yes. You know, there's a question mark, but should we have won that game? Probably not. If draw would have been a fair result, but obviously the players switched off at the end for that one. So that's on the players, in my opinion. Crystal Palace won. The players missed loads of chances in the first half. Again, that's on the players. We could have been 1 or 2-0 up first half. Second half, it went a little bit kind of, you know, wasn't the best. And we held on a little bit, or got a little bit lucky, I thought, in the second half. But again, is that players or is that the manager? You could probably say maybe a bit of both. Aston Villa, yes, tactically, but a point away from Aston Villa is not the worst result in the world. And then the West Ham game, I'd say it's 50-50 again. Players not taking their chance in the first half. I felt second half, you know, West Ham, if you look at all the XG and stuff, West Ham actually had a higher XG than us in the second half of that game. So, you know, again, 50-50 for me. More I think about it, the more I'm like, well, no, I don't agree. I don't agree it's all on Ten Hag. Personally, I think there's, you know, yes, there are mistakes, and yes, there are things we could be doing differently, and yes, there are, you know, tactical issues and substitutions in some of those games as well that I would question. But ultimately, in a lot of those games, I'd also blame the players as well. So no, I disagree that it's just the manager that's cost us 8 points. I think it's probably fair to say it's probably 50-50, where the players have cost us some of those games, and also the manager as well. So yeah, so for me, I kind of, again, not that I think believe the story because it's come from the Sun, but if it is to be believed, I think the players need to have a hard look at themselves in the mirror as well, to kind of, and it's a culture that we've got at United though, isn't it? It's always been a problem where the players always shift the blame to someone else. If you give them an excuse, they'll take it. They'll be like, oh yeah, that's the reason. That's the reason why I'm not playing very well at the moment. It's somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's fault, it seems, with a lot of these players. But there's a rundown of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Be interesting to hear your opinion on that last story, actually. So let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know whether you think Ten Hag is to blame. Let me know whether you think the players are to blame. I think it's an interesting kind of talking point. So just let us know what you think on that one in the comments. And let me know what you think about the other topics discussed in today's video. Don't forget to smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.